Here we are with successful property investor Mike Woods, and today we're going to talk about becoming a success in the property world, mate.
Okay, Mark, fire away.
Right, first of all, how did you get into property investing?
Well, it all started from school. When I was in school, I wasn't the best. I didn't do very well. So most of my time in school was focused on sport. So I played a lot of rugby. And during the summer holidays, I got jobs offered by local builders. And I used to go on building sites and labour. So that sort of started it. And I just found that building and getting involved with construction, I just found it interesting because you were involved with the process of nothing and ended up with this end product, you know. So whether it be an extension or involved in a house, or in one case I remember helping somebody build a swimming pool. It was in Porthcawl in South Wales. So I really sort of got into that. And when I came to leaving school, as I mentioned, I only had 3 O-levels. One of them was art, one was engineering drawing, and the other one was maths. So I was with a careers officer and we were discussing what I was going to do, and A-levels wasn't really an option for me. And she suggested that I went on a course in one of the colleges, and that was going to be in architecture and building studies. So I thought, yeah, well, I like that because I enjoyed the drawing side of things and then the building studies. So that's where I went. So I started studying building and architectural studies and just got on well with it. And so whilst I wasn't good in school with your physics and all your other subjects, when you put those subjects into something I was interested in, I started to thrive then, and I did really well in those college courses.
So a lot of people like myself come out of school with really. No. So you're saying basically, even if you haven't got the X amount of A-levels and stuff like that, you can still become a success.
Well, absolutely. I genuinely had 3 O-levels and I needed 4 to get on this course.
Yeah.
So I spoke to the college lecturer, the course lecturer, and he said to me, he gave me a chance, and he said, look, by Christmas we'll be going through 3 modules and you need to pass them to stay on the course. So he gave me a chance, and I made sure I got those modules finished, and I did well in them as well. And those first 3 modules, if I remember, were maths, communications, which was English, and it was a physics-based subject, materials in construction. Well, as I mentioned, once I got into understanding how materials, physics and maths worked in something I was interested in, I then sort of slotted into place. The pennies dropped, as it were. Yeah. So it was finding something I was interested in, and that's what it was, other than rugby, of course.
Yeah. Have you had any failures, and how... You don't need to go... I'm not Piers Morgan, mate. I'm not going to go into the big depths of things. But have you had any failures, and if you have, how did you recover from them?
Yeah, I guess the first failure for me, and it was a hard one to swallow, is that once I'd finished playing youth rugby, and I played for Llanelli Rugby Football Club as a youth, and I got selected to play for Wales for the youth as well. So I was immensely...
Bring it in, mate. That's pretty... Come on. That's pretty impressive.
I was immensely passionate, and being as a kid growing up in Wales, where you in the 70s, where you had all these idols, and as you know, the Welsh rugby team in the 70s were phenomenal, and then to find myself in Llanelli RFC, surrounded by Phil Bennett, Ray Gravel, all these Selwyn Williams scrum half, all these people, Delmy Thomas, it was unbelievable, and you couldn't help not grow into this position. You couldn't help grow. So I thought, right, this is what I want to do. I want to play rugby, and it was an amateur game at the time. Yeah. So once I finished youth rugby, I wanted to play first class rugby. So my first senior team was Maesteg Rugby Club. I played for Maesteg Rugby Club, and the coach knew that I was that my youth was spent in Llanelli. So my debut for Maesteg was against Llanelli RFC up in the Maesteg Four Sems Rugby Club. So that was a great. Unfortunately, I progressed. I ended up playing for Swansea RFC as well. But we got to the point where it was turning professional. And in the cold light of day, I had to ask myself, what was I going to do? Was I going to pursue a career in architecture, in building, because this is what I was doing, or was I going to put more attention into rugby? And the realization was I didn't think I was good enough. That when you play at rugby at a high level, and you're playing with some immensely talented boys, because when I was finished in Swansea, I was playing alongside the Moriartys. Robert Jones was a scrum half, and talent that you just would have gasped at, you know. Yeah. So and you realise, you think, I'm really lucky to be playing alongside these boys, but I haven't really got what they've got.
Yeah.
So and it was a hard one to swallow, to realise, you know, Mike, you haven't got what these guys have got. Yeah. They've got something else, you know. So and it was going professional, and it was a sort of, right, okay, I'm going to divert my attention now, and I'm going to concentrate on my architectural career. And that was, if I'm right, around about 1987, 1988. So I went back to play for Vellinghall, second-class rugby, but it was still a good West Wales rugby union, but a league system. And some of the ex-Connectley boys had dropped back into playing in that squad then. And that was great, but it was... The realisation again is, like, I'm not playing first-class rugby anymore. I'm playing good quality rugby with Vellinghall RFC, playing along some great guys again. But it was a case of, right, I've got a career ahead of me now. I've got to get into money. I was married. I had to focus. Yeah. So it was a case of realisation and turning my attentions to the architectural career. So at that time, I was working for a firm of architects. And I'd been there about 6 or 7 years, leading up to early 90s. And I found myself in a position which a lot of people will find themselves in. They were doing a good job, feeling undervalued for the efforts they were putting. And I just thought, I can't do this for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
I enjoyed what I did, but I didn't enjoy working for somebody. And I would go to work and I would just feel demotivated and unhappy. And I thought, I've got to do something about this. So I resigned.
We were talking earlier and you said, why did you leave the army? And I was like, Braveheart, I was like, freedom. And that, you know, that working for someone else, it used to drive me nuts. I had the confidence in myself to know I wanted to do this. It was a hell of a step, because my son Ben was born on January the 1st of 1995, and I resigned in the August of 95 and set up my own business in September. Now, of course, I'd been prepping to my own business, but I actually had the key for my office in the September. And it was a big step. It was a huge step. Resigning from a well-paid job. I had a house, I had a nice house, and I had a young family. But I had that confidence, and I had that resistance to go, I'm going to do this, and failure is not an option. I'm going somewhere. Yeah.
So that was the start of my professional career then. And being self-employed then made me realise how many opportunities you've got. Because you're not just going 9 to 5, working for somebody else and just doing what you're told. Okay, you know, you're given responsibilities in the job, but ultimately you're tied to a job. Whereas being self-employed just gives you opportunities to do other things. And one of those was just to grow that business and expand that business. So after a couple of years of having the architectural business, I started a building company.
Yeah.
So.
And we talked about earlier on, well, you mentioned about when you went to Nestle, you were around the Ray Crabells and so and forth, which was a dream come true.
Absolutely.
And you started excelling there. We talked about, because I always talk about association, it's such an important thing. We talked about two amazing guys earlier, Simon Colson, who've interviewed, internet marketing genius really, and a great guy, Richard McMahon, best-selling author, another fantastic guy. And how important is it to associate with the right people?
Well, what I've found during the bulk of my career, I just kept myself to myself, kept my head down, and just worked hard at doing what I wanted to do. I found quite often that with some areas of work, if you weren't involved, you weren't in the clique, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've never been one to follow the crowds. So if I walked into a room or an arena of people and I don't feel comfortable with them, I don't feel the need to burrow in and make my point and get my point across. I just think, hey ho, you just carry on, I'll do my own thing.
Yeah.
But just 2 years ago, I met Simon principally, and another chap called Kevin Green, who's a business and property investor, star of the Channel 4 Secret Millionaire in West Wales. And I met these guys 2 years ago, and I realised that whilst I thought that I'd done reasonably well, compared to these guys, I was just scratching the surface. Yeah. So I just thought, when I was listening to Simon Coulson talk, and I met him, and I say Kevin, and another guy, Andy Harrington, and I just thought to myself, I could learn more from these guys. There's so much more for me to learn.
Yeah.
So I did genuinely realise, as you say, that by associating yourself with these people and learning from them, you can take your career to a whole new level, a stratospheric level.
Yeah.
But you need to be committed. You need to commit, and you need to understand where you want to go. And these guys can show you the way, but it's for you to put the hard work in. They can show you, but nothing for nothing. You've got to work hard at it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I was listening to Richard McMunn's one of his things on YouTube yesterday, and it was so interesting. What you said there rings true about putting the work in. He said 95% of my success is down to one word, and he said that's action.
Absolutely. You have to. When I met Rick in May last year, I was at a meeting with Simon, and I was talking to Rick, and he was telling me about what he does, about helping people write books.
Yeah.
And it had never occurred to me to write a book. I'm not the academic type. And we were talking, and he said, Mike, you've got so much information in your head, you've got so much knowledge and experience as being somebody who's run an architectural company, somebody who's run an NHBC building company, and now you've built a property portfolio just worth under 8 million. There are people out there who just need to know what you've got. Yeah. There are property trainers out there who haven't been in the game that long, yet they're training people. Where I haven't done any training, yet had all this knowledge. So he said, I think you should put this in a book. Yeah. And the difficulty for me was chunking down, creating the chapters, creating the layers, and not getting lost in the detail, because I'm quite a detailed person.
Yeah.
So you can ask me a question about how to do something, and I'll end up going down and down and down, and then you can't do that because you need to do that. And I had to stop myself at a level and keep it at a level that was interesting to readers and not lose them in the detail.
Yeah.
So Rick was very good with that in helping me put that book together. And we created 16 chapters, 200 pages, kept it real. But what was interesting is Rick said to me when we were talking about doing a book, he said, what do you want people to get from you? What do you want? This is important. What message are we getting across? So I wanted to get across to them that if they take action, they can achieve something. And the other thing I wanted to get across was that I was genuinely there to help people, because I've done reasonably well in my own life, and I've never chased the money. I've just done what I needed to do and enjoyed what I've done. So if you can be passionate about what you do and help people, then that was important for me. So we said, let's do that. And since we've written the book, and it's actually went to number 1 on Amazon.
Amazing reviews on it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What the reviews are exactly what I've just said now. So what we set out to do is happened. And that in itself is awesome. That in itself is awesome. To get that message across that you've tried to do, not having written a book before, and then people come back to you and say exactly that. Well, that was tremendous. Tremendous.
I can totally relate to that, because I'm in the process of writing my first book at the moment.
Good.
And we've had just, I've only put it up a few weeks ago, but I've had over 100 people pre-order the book already.
Fantastic.
Which is amazing. But it sometimes you don't realise, do you? You think, oh, I'm just plodding along, and a councillor from Pembrokeshire County Council came up to me once, and he said, and I was doing a certain job, and he said, Mark, what are you doing here? And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, what the heck are you doing here? He said, you've done so much. And he said, you should have a book out, you should be public speaking, you should be, and I was like, and sometimes you need to hear that, because, you know, you just think...
You don't think anybody's interested in what you've got to do.
Yeah.
I didn't think anybody would be interested in what and who I am.
Yeah.
But it's these guys who have experienced a different side of things, and they're in the helping the people business, that they said to me, you could help so many people with your knowledge, and I just didn't realise that. And one review was on my book on Amazon, and I came across it. This person said that I've implemented things in the book, and it has saved me thousands of pounds, you know, thousands times the value of the book. Yeah. Well, that was really touching. That was humbling. That was great. I'm actually tried looking for the person on Facebook, because everybody's on Facebook, to send them a direct message to say thank you very much.
His name wasn't John Smith, was it, mate?
No, there's thousands of those. No, it was a young lady, and I just sought her out. But that you know, you can't ask people to write reviews like that. No. And you know, they write the book, and there are a couple of bad reviews on there, which is difficult to understand, because you know, it's a complete black and white contrast to 99% of what people are saying. So you wonder where somebody's coming from to leave a very bad. It was only a few words, but you just sort of say, hey ho, you know, you can't please all the people all of the time. But if I'm helping people and they're coming along with positive comments like thanks very much, great.
I noticed with J.K. Rowling, or Rowling, however you say it, her book, and I was looking at some of her reviews, and she's had thousands of like 1 or 2 stars, but she's had tens, if not hundreds of thousands good reviews. So you're always going to get that. How do you deal with the critics mentally?
To be honest, I did genuinely laugh.
Yeah.
I didn't take it to heart at all. I didn't take it to heart at all. Because when you've got a number of, you know, there was 30 or 40 very positive reviews. Yeah. And then one person said, this book is like all the other property books out there. Well, it's not. It genuinely isn't. And I know it's not. Yeah. And it's written from a completely different angle. So whoever decided to read that review, I don't know where they're coming from, and whether they did it just to put in a bad word, I don't know. But I just thought, well, I know that I'm helping people, and if people can read that negative review, they can make their own minds up about it. So hey,
it might have been an ex-girlfriend under a pseudonym. You don't know.
You don't know. No.
But you can't make everybody happy. You just can't do it.
I wasn't bothered about it at all. At the end of the day, if you're helping 99% of the people, then you can't hit them all, can you? At the end of the day.
Is it too late to start investing? Say someone's 30, 40, 50, 60 years old.
It's never too late. There's been some massive announcements with this Clause 24 tax changes that's going to come in the next couple of years, which is going to make a difference to how property portfolios and the tax situation with that. It is going to make a difference, and we are all looking at ways in which we can mitigate the damage. Okay, so there is going to be some issues, but it's never too late. At the end of the day, for hundreds of years in the UK, property has always been a wise investment. Yeah. Even in recessions, banks will lend you money against a property. Yeah. You walk into a bank and ask them for £50,000 to buy some shares in a blue chip company, they're going to say no. But even in a recession, and with all the problems we've had, you want to buy a house, they will still lend you money against bricks and mortar. It's always a wise and safe investment. Yeah. Now, in the 2000s, we were very fortunate to have capital growth through the massive increase in house prices. But we can't rely on that so much these days because property's only gone up by just 13% in the 8 years.
Yeah.
And this is one of the other things that I try to get across to people. There are property trainers out there who are saying that the property doubles in the UK every 10 years. So you think, 100,000 back in 2007, then it's going to be 200,000 in 2017. Well, unfortunately, it's only gone up 13%, generally on average in the UK in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
So it's highly unlikely to go up 87% in 2 years.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is we can't rely on capital growth for the moment. But the issue is, and these are the facts of the matter, the population in the UK grows by 400,000 per year, naturally. There's 165,000 people who stay in the UK more than leave the UK in immigration. And that doesn't take account of the current issues in the Middle East. So we already have a housing shortage in the UK. We already have one. The government are aware of the fact that we need to be building 200,000 houses a year. And it's not happening. And it's not happening because the banks are not lending to people who would ordinarily build maybe 2, 3 or 4 houses, a small development of 6. They're not lending anymore to small developers. So it's only the larger developers that are actually able to get funding to build development sites. So the general house building market is very low in the UK at the moment, and we are heading for a huge problem. Yeah. So going back to your question, is it not too late to start investing in property? What I say to people is with the constant increase of population and the need for property, my strategy is to buy older properties and refurbish them and bring them back to life. There are loads and loads of empty homes in the country, and there are loads of properties that are substandard, and they need a bit of TLC.
Yeah. So
buy up an old house, refurbish it, and put it back on the market and price it so that first-time buyers can buy. And ultimately, you see, a first-time buyer, if they found a property that was in need of £20,000, £30,000 worth of work, because of the house prices and the way that things are, they can only just barely get the deposit together. So there's no way they're going to be able to fund £20,000 worth of refurb work. So if we can go in there, buy it, refurbish it and put it back on, and they can get a mortgage to buy it then and get 80, 90% mortgage, whatever they can get as a residential mortgage, then they can get on the market. So my point to anybody who wants to get in the market and into property is think of that and be part of the solution. Provide housing, much needed quality housing for people because it's needed. And don't feel bad about it because it is needed. So be part of the solution.
Let's say many people get into debt when they're like in their 20s and all of a sudden they've got a £2,000 debt, a £5,000, a £10,000, a £40,000 debt with credit cards. Yeah. Let's say someone several years later they've like, I've got this like, whether it's £5,000 or £50,000 debt. How can they get out of that situation and get onto the property ladder?
That's a very, very good point. And I've got clients in exactly that position now. Part of what I do is help people restructure that debt. And the first thing is they've got to ask themselves, how did they get this way? And some people are often in very, very good jobs, yet they've got 20, 30, 40,000 pounds worth of credit card debt. Yeah. They have to rein that in. Now, what we've got to do, the first thing I help people do is I help get people be lined up for good credit. Okay, we've got to get people into good credit, not bad debt. So what we need to do is get people to park this debt in a place where we're going to be paying the next to nothing interest, because it's the 18 and 19s and the 23% interest that are hitting them as well on top. Yeah. So we've got to get this debt and focus on the highest interest-bearing debt and get that paid off. Because we can't go forward to invest if we've got all this debt behind us. We've really got to look at the debt, bite the bullet and concentrate on it. Yeah. And even if that takes 2 years, we've got to get this stuff out of the way. It's not going to go away. So what we do is gently focus on the high interest bearing debt. We try and put as much of this bad debt on 0% cards as we can and spread it over 18 months.
Yeah.
and get rid of the high interest stuff. Then we can get rid of that stuff and get rid of and start smoothing out the problems we've got. And I've got it with one client, after 18 months we got rid of 3 cards. We got the rest of the stuff on 0% for 24 months. That then meant that she's got regular outgoing, and then any surplus money she was able to start putting aside and building up her good credit in order to move forward. And it was just after 18 months she bought herself a flat in London from being £30,000 in debt, bad debt.
Yeah.
So it is possible. There's a structure and a way to do it.
Yeah. You're giving hope to the masses, mate. You're giving hope to the people.
Good.
We talked about earlier about is my stuff of any value, for example, and we both had doubted. We thought, well, yeah, I'm just Mike or I'm just Mark, sort of thing.
Yeah.
How important is it to stay grounded? Because there's a lot of people, sometimes they get a bit of success, maybe they've broken a certain record for some sports achievement or something like that, or they've made 10 million quid, and all of a sudden they're away with the fairies, they're like, I'm fantastic, and nobody else is. We see people like that. You're very grounded, you're very down to earth. How important do you think it is to stay humble and to still learn off people?
Well, I think you just got to be true to yourself. I think it's simply that. You know, I am who I am. I'm comfortable in myself. If I'm honest, even though I played rugby at a high standard, when I think back, I was insecure. I had an insecurity, and that was because of the way and how I was brought up. We've all got these various things. We've all got different needs in our lives as young children. My parents were very busy. They were licensees. So in my life, I had a lot of security because I always knew they were going to be there.
Yeah.
But what I didn't have is any attention as a child because they were focused on their customers. So I lacked certain things that I craved for. So like one of the things, because I had security, I often like a little bit of insecurity. So one of my hobbies is racing, motor racing. Because in 15-minute motor racing, you don't know what's going to happen. So that's one of the doubts, and that's one of the insecurities.
Yeah.
So I go out motor racing, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen in this. And the adrenaline and the experience you get is fantastic.
Yeah.
But going back to your point about understanding who you are, being self-aware, understanding, and as you get older, we all get a little bit wiser, and we all get to know each other, and we know how we operate as people, and then we know what buttons to press and how we can help ourselves along. And for me, what I realised, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago now, is that I don't have to impress anybody. I don't need to impress anybody. I'm comfortable as I am, and so I just tend to be who I am, and I am quite. Some people say to me now that they realise that I'm just a normal guy, and I just am. Yeah. I just do what I do, and I do everything the best I can. Yeah. And that's all anybody can really do. But keep your feet on the ground, and what you often find in all walks of life, it's the pot, kettle and black, isn't it? You know, people aren't quite what they make themselves out to be. So the people who shout the loudest, then be careful. I think they're not quite probably who they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are the biggest enemies of success?
The enemies of success. I think part of the problem that you can come across is never knowing when to stop. Because when you've got a mindset of anything is possible, then once you get to the pinnacle of one peak, if that makes sense, once you're looking at the peak, you think, I want to get up there. And once you're there, you don't then go, I've reached my point, I can relax now.
Yeah.
You see another peak.
Always.
And you then head for that one. So I think you'll find with a lot of successful people, and don't take this the wrong way of nothing's ever good enough, but once you achieve one level, you realise that you've got the capabilities of going to another level. And that's the thing of an entrepreneur and successful people, is that skies are the limit. So you get to a point where you say to yourself sometimes, when am I going to stop this? When am I going to stop putting new things in line for me to rise to and to aspire to. I did it the other week. I went to a car garage. There's a car there that I've got my eye on. And
it's a Ferrari.
It is.
I've seen it's amazing, mate.
Yeah, and I just say to myself, why do I do this to myself?
And that isn't.
It pulls you on. It always does. It's like throwing out a 3-pin hook and pulling yourself up there. It's like throwing it out and land on something you want, and you just pull yourself towards it. Unfortunately, there are some people in life who don't look that far ahead. They're happy with their lot, and that's great. But personally, I have to keep going forward.
And that, I totally relate. And I know, and that Ferrari, people, it's not just a normal Ferrari. It's not your Magnum PI stuff. It was something special. It is
a special one. But here's the thing: cars are cars.
Yeah.
But Ferraris are actually going up in value. The one I've got now has gone up about 20-30%. When I bought it because I wanted it, and I'll tell you the story of that. I was driving to Brands Hatch going to a race one weekend, and 2 Ferraris went past me, a 360 and a 348. The 360 is a newer one. And this 348 went past me, and I was looking and put my window down to hear them going past, and I said to myself, I'm going to have one of them. And sure enough, 18 months later, I found myself in the garage. I scoured the market and I found one and I bought it. And that was my pride and joy. But as you just mentioned there then, it was like, great, I've got this thing and I love it. I love it to bits. It's a fantastic car. But when you're into these things, it's like good wines and other things. You find that if you buy something of quality, it lasts. But it's actually going up in value. So these Ferraris are actually going up in value. So they're not just toys for folly, they're actually investments.
Yeah. And I've been watching the clock, mate, as we've been doing our interview, and the clock is a little, well, not little, but the Rolex on your wrist, but it's the same thing. Rolex just goes up in value, doesn't it? A lot of the time.
Yeah, well, for me, it was a case of, I've always liked nice things, and I've always thought if I can afford it, I will. So it was about a few years ago, and I thought I'm going to buy one. Yeah. So I put some money aside. I did a couple of jobs, and it was a case of, but I don't just go buy things on a whim. Yeah. I think long and hard about it. Do I need it? Do I really want it? So I never think I have made a mistake. I constantly adjust all my thought processes. So then I've done it with passion and energy because I've decided that's what I'm going to do. So I never look back and think I shouldn't have done that because I think about things properly, you know.
You deserve it, mate. I can see you work very hard for all of this stuff, and you're a genuinely nice person. Last question, biggest keys to success. Give me 3 biggest keys to success, quickly.
I would say becoming self-aware. When you become self-aware and comfortable with yourself, that is important. The other thing is never give up. Never give up. Always have confidence in yourself to strive, and always set goals. Set goals for yourself. Choose something. They say try and make it realistic and try to make it achievable. But don't just say, I want to be a millionaire in I want to be a millionaire one day. Because one day will never come, because it's always something in the future. And be more specific. Be more specific of what you want to achieve. And if you want something specific, say, I want this by then. And visualize that. There's a little bit of NLP technique, and people can easily read up on this sort of stuff. It's very easy to visualize something, place yourself in that position in 1 or 2 years' time, and work towards it. Because if you have a goal to work towards, you're going in a determined direction. If you have no clean direction, it's like a sat-nav. I'm going to go there, and this is how I'm going to get there. Yeah. If you never do that, you're going to be rudderless in the ocean, just wallowing around. So, self-awareness, never give up, determination, and set goals.
Brilliant. Your book, What's it called, and how can people find your book?
It's called How to Successfully Invest in Property.
Yeah.
It's available on Amazon. So that's all they need to type in is how to successfully invest in property, and they'll find it there.
And I'm going to put a link to it as well, so you can click on the link and get Mike's tips for success in the property field.
Yeah.
Website?
Website is Mike Woods, the property expert. If they just type in Mike Woods Property into Google, they'll find me very, very easily. It's simply that, Mike Woods Property. But the website is www.mikewoodsthepropertyexpert.com.
Brilliant. And the one last thing is, I know you do a lot of work for charity and you're for the Princess Trust.
Yeah.
Very soon, can you quickly tell us about that, please?
Yeah, it's what I do for my way of giving back. I'm a Princess Trust business mentor, so I give my time to young people who are enrolled in the Princess Trust, and if somebody is in that organisation and the trust feel that I can help somebody specifically with their needs, then I will meet with these people as a mentor directly. In fact, I've got a meeting today with a young lady who's starting a new business and she needs some direction. I've got another young lad who is in the building trade, a one-man band specialising in traditional methods. Very, very passionate, good at what he did, but no business acumen. So I've helped him structure his business, told him how to get an accountant, told him how to work out to pay his taxes and for subcontracting. And the other thing I do as well is I'm involved with Welsh Government, and I'm a business mentor for Welsh Government as well. So again, if they have somebody come on board, the Welsh Government are very good at supporting people who are entrepreneurs in Wales. So if they feel that I could help somebody in that way, they'll match me with somebody in that fashion as well. So that's me giving back and helping people for that. And it's very rewarding as well to see people succeed. It's very rewarding.
That's fantastic. Mike Wood, it has been an absolute honour and a pleasure, mate.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for offering the time to get my little bit of story out there. Hope it helps people.
I know for a fact it will. You've inspired me today, so thanks very much, mate.
No problem.